Hey guys, welcome back to Well. Today we're going to be talking about the Pilates boom. I know it is on everyone's mind in the boutique fitness industry since more than 40% of the new businesses opening in our world over the last year have been Pilates. And of course, I brought on Seran Glanfield as our guest. She is the founder of Spring 3 and host of the award-winning Pilates business podcast. And she's a leading business coach and consultant to primarily Pilates, but lots of businesses in the boutique fitness world. She has really masterminded the growth and development of hundreds of studios. And I personally had the chance to work with her leading a mastermind prior to starting Walla. So I know she'll have a lot of great insights. And for those of you who are in the Pilates world, figuring out how to navigate this increasingly competitive landscape, you're going to want to listen in. Welcome to Well, Seran. Thanks for being here today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I know. Thank you. I've been on your podcast before. Seran is, as I mentioned in the beginning, the host of the Pilates business podcast. And so I'm just so excited that you were able to join us on Well, and bring your knowledge of this little niche in the industry. And yeah, thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. So great to be with you and to talk all the good things, Pilates and business.
I know. Well, and Seran and I have known each other. Actually, the last little bit of business I did before starting Walla was with you. We actually ran a mastermind for female business owners in the wellness space. And it was such a fun endeavor. We got to know some incredible women, and Seran and I really had a blast working together. So it's fun now we get to collaborate in this way. Obviously, we are bringing you on board here to talk about the Pilates boom and really understand what's happening in this part of the industry. But share with our listeners a little bit about how you got involved in the fitness industry in general, but specifically why Pilates became so important to you.
Yeah. So many years ago, so I'm going to totally date myself now. I came out of university, I went into working in finance and marketing in the City of London and then on Wall Street. So I was working really long hours, but I'd always been very active. So at that time, I was balancing the intensity of my finance job with doing a lot of intense workouts. So I was running a lot. I was doing a lot of triathlons. I was training for half Ironman triathlons. And so I was considered myself to be pretty athletic, pretty fit, always had been. And one day, one of my friends said to me, we were following all the stuff that was happening in New York at the time. And she said, "Hey, why don't you go and take this Pilates class? I just took it. I think you would love it." So I went to my first Pilates class, and if you're listening and you do Pilates, and you may be familiar with the pulling straps exercise where, you're face down in the box and you're pulling straps back to the side and behind you. Well, we were doing that on the mat. So in my head, I'm just on the mat doing this exercise. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, why is this so hard for me? And I can run for hours. I can bike for hours. I can swim for pretty far. Why is this so hard? And so I was just drawn to it because I was so curious as to why this was so challenging for me. And so over the course of the next few weeks, months, and then years, I spent more time in the Pilates studio, in many Pilates studios in New York City. And eventually when I decided that I wanted to leave finance, I felt a pull into the Pilates world and felt like I needed to go and explore this more. And so I went to become a teacher, and I got trained in the Pilates method under Romana's Pilates in New York and met some fabulous human beings along the way. And so it really, I think that so many, because my story is not uncommon. I think so many people fall in love with the method first. And then they realize they want to make it a bigger part of their life, right? So whether that's becoming a teacher or a studio owner or, it's something in this world, it really has a massive pull.
Yeah. I started doing Pilates actually when I was 16 years old as kind of as a complement to my athletic career. I was a volleyball player, and I was working on my vertical. I was, 5'11" and really trying to be touching 10 foot. That was my goal. I wanted to be able to touch 10 foot by the time I was a senior in high school. And somebody, I think it was at the gym that I belonged to, there was a Pilates studio kind of on the side, and one of the guys would see me jumping boxes, and this Pilates teacher was like, listen, if you're really trying to increase your vertical, like, let me get you on the reformer. And I can almost guarantee I'll get you, another couple inches. And it was astounding. Like the ability to learn how to jump with your core and actually recruit different muscles to do the work rather than just your legs was so amazing. So falling in love with the method became just this obsession of mine for quite a while. And then I bounced back and forth between yoga and Pilates over the years. But okay, well, this kind of era we're in right now, where obviously boutique fitness has been around for a while, but we see these kind of spikes of different trends, and whether it be bar for a little while or boot camps for a while, we're in the Pilates era right now. And part of the reason I wanted to bring you on is just the sheer volume of studios we're seeing opening right now. And from our perspective, a lot of them are full pretty quickly. Like, they're selling memberships out before they even open their doors. So I think I know I saw a stat in whether it was Affotech or Fit Insider that in the last year, over 40% of the brand new businesses in boutique fitness were Pilates or reformer, Legree, some sort of reformer-based workout. And, we're seeing that at Walled too. So from your perspective, I would really just love to hear kind of what you think is driving the Pilates boom. Was it that people finally saw that this was a hyper profitable model? Was it there was just such a demand? Just give us your thoughts around the behind the scenes drivers.
Yeah. So I think, if you've been doing Pilates as long as you have and I have, there's a lot there, right? There's a lot in it. And I think that, did we know this was coming? No, of course not, right? Like, I would like to think that I could have predicted this incredible boom that we've seen in Pilates. But I think for many people who have been doing Pilates for a long time and fell in love with it many, many years ago, you might have known that it was somewhat inevitable that at some point Pilates would be the thing that everybody wants to do. And I think that everybody who has done it for a long time is kind of wondering why it took so long, right, for it to become sort of mainstream. But there's lots of reasons why. And I think that there was a lot of things that have happened at sort of similar times that have made Pilates sort of be the thing that a lot of people want. I think, first of all, it was good timing, right? So there was a massive shift. There has been a massive shift, obviously, not just towards boutique fitness over the last 10, 15 years, but towards well-being, wellness, and longevity. And although people have always had movement and exercise in their life, perhaps many people have, there is now a shift not just towards sort of fitness and cardiovascular fitness, but towards movement that is functional and going to drive longevity. And people are talking more about lifespan and health span, right? And I think that's a shift that we've seen sort of in the last 3 to 5 years, which has coincided very nicely with when we've seen Pilates kind of really come to the forefront. I also think that, I think that people perhaps were exhausted by a lot of those punishing workouts. And we're kind of relieved to have the opportunity to do something that makes them feel good, makes them feel stronger, makes them feel more connected, is a nice stress reliever, but also is something that you can do regularly, right? It's a little bit different to a lot of movement practices where it's grueling and exhausting and you're tired afterwards, and you're kind of, the idea of going and doing that again the next day is like, feels like a lot. Pilates is something that you can do 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it doesn't exhaust you or it isn't as grueling as some of the other workouts that we've seen come and go, as it were. And I think, COVID helped a lot, right? Mat Pilates you can do anywhere, and for sure, home workout surged on the mat. in that time as well. And that helped a lot. And then I think sort of simultaneous to all of that happening, we also saw some big players in the market start to get traction. And we saw Club Pilates really start to push and roll out large number of franchises. And, it's not a secret that Pilates studios can be incredibly profitable. The price point is that bit higher. The footprint of the studio does not need to be humongous. And so the margins have always been pretty strong in the Pilates world, thankfully, for many of us who've been teaching there. So it is, I think it was a lot of things that kind of have come together now. And so I think it was inevitable that at some point we would see this growth that we've been seeing. And I think it blends so many different modalities and so many things that people enjoy about movement practice, everything from that mindfulness, right? So you focus on your own movement. I think people love to learn more about their bodies. I think wearables are so popular because we like to know what's happening. And I think that mindfulness about the way that you move, and when you learning about your body and the way that you move in certain planes of motion and so on, people enjoy that. I think that it also brings you into a small community. And that is a big, powerful part of, I think, what keeps people coming back as well. And it spans all ages. When I was teaching Pilates, I would teach people who are 25 and I would teach people who are 85 and everything in between, all walks of life, different professions, from dancers to, teachers and, everyone in between. And so I think that it was coming, but we weren't sure when.
Yeah. I think I want to go back to one of the things you mentioned, just the margins in the Pilates business and kind of the big money coming into this little section of the industry. And Club Pilates obviously was kind of the kickstart for it. But when we think about boutique fitness, one of the big challenges often is seeing how few businesses are really above maybe 20-25% profit margins. And Pilates studios often fall in that higher range. My curiosity there is, how is the teacher pool? Are you seeing in our businesses that you work with in Thrive community and just in general that you talk to in the Pilates world, whether it's on your podcast or not, is the kind of pool of teachers keeping up with the incredible expansion of businesses? Because I would imagine teachers, when they're scarce, can demand a lot of money and hurt those margins.
Yeah, I think that is one of the challenges that the industry has faced. It faced it even before the boom, though, I think, in a lot of ways. We did, the number one challenge for many studio owners is and has always been finding the talent. And like many businesses, but in the Pilates, especially in certain sort of segments of the Pilates industry as well. And so I think it's always been a challenge. And I think now that challenge has been exacerbated because of this intense level of demand for Pilates and new studios opening, for sure. And I speak to studio owners every single week inside of my program, and most of them are Pilates studios. And we talk about it and have talked about it a lot. I think there's more resources now than there ever has been to help studio owners to develop their talent and to develop their teacher training programs if they have one, or to offer one, or to build one. And so I'm seeing us kind of come through or manage that better than we ever have. But there was certainly, if I look back to sort of 2 years ago, I would say that was for sure just like this real bottleneck for so many studio owners. And in terms of not just their ability to drive revenue, but also in terms of then where, as the business owner, they were then spending all of their time as perhaps the one who was willing and able to teach those extra hours and teach the extra class. And so I would say now we're a little bit through that, and from the studio owners that I work with, but that talent pool is, the quantity of people we need to have teaching is growing. But I do think that there's more and more teacher training programs out there. And with many of the studios that are opening, they're thinking about that first, which is, I think, kind of an important part. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I always, when I would do consulting work with studios, yoga studios always had going for them was they had very robust schedules that they always needed teachers for, and people get hooked on the modality and want to learn how to teach. And And so teacher trainings would be sometimes 25-30% of the annual revenue for yoga studios. And I think that's, obviously an opportunity for Pilates studios as more and more of them need, especially when we're looking at very specialized methods. Like, I know Legree and Pilates do not like to be compared to each other because they are different. I have to walk a fine line here. But very specialized modalities like Legree or like certain Megaformer, where it is their way or the highway. You can't come in and teach a class unless you know their specific methodology. I'd love to hear so Seran's group, her online community that she has for studio owners, particularly, I don't know, is it, primarily Pilates studios, I would imagine?
So, my background, given the my background in the Pilates world, has always been drawn to me, and I've been drawn to them. So I would say probably about 60% of our members are Pilates studios. It might be closer to 70. But there's also folks in my Thrive group coaching program that have that offer bar and yoga as well. Is often a mix of modalities. And I'd say that most of the studio owners that I also work with have of both one-on-one private training as well as group classes on either sometimes just reformers, sometimes a variety of equipment as well. And so we see all different business models inside.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is there are so many models and I'm seeing so many studios now pull in like, oh, we have this extra room we did teacher trainings in. We could do those off-site. Let's throw 6 reformers in there. And so I'd love to hear from you what the common threads are in the successful studios right now, because you are seeing obviously a lot of Pilates, but a lot of multimodality and other kind of class-based businesses. But the studios that are getting it right, are there any major common threads that you'd say, okay, everybody needs to know this?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. If I look across the successful studio owners today, but also probably even just in like looking back, there's similarities across certain studios. I think number one, the studios that are most successful are super clear about who they are, what they do, and who they serve. So they are not trying to be everything to everyone. I still see some studios who, are chasing the next trend, but it's not necessarily part of their being, their brand, and what they set out to do initially. And so there's often that misalignment, which I think creates a struggle for them. And so if those studio owners and those people who are leading those businesses forward know exactly the types of people they want to serve, they want to know exactly the type of experience they want to give to their clients, they know what their value proposition is, they know exactly what it is that they're selling, everything from class names to the way that they greet their clients, the way that they market their business reflects that real clarity they have around their brand and their business. So that, that means that their brand messaging is really intentional, and that's cohesive across, every touch point in the business, whether that's the website, the email, the way that the instructor teaches and greets folks when they walk in the door. And they know that it's not just about the class, that it's about the whole experience. And I think that, I'm sure, there is a lot of competition. And I think the more that we can lean into that part of the business, then the more you will stand out from the crowd. And that's what I'm continuing to see. It's the folks who are perhaps just looking at the studio down the street and saying, okay, well, they're charging this much and I'm opening my studio, so I'm just going to charge exactly the same as them. And they're not necessarily differentiating themselves in any way other than the fact that they perhaps are a different address. So it's really important to think about that. And I think for those studio owners that are the studios that are successful, the owners have gotten really clear on their business, the business model, and who they serve. And then I think that the other part of that is as I mentioned, it's just about having being the leader of the business and recognizing that doesn't necessarily just mean you're just a teacher with a website and a name above the door. It's you are the leader of your clients. You're the leader of your team. You are the one who is responsible for seeing beyond the 4 walls of the studio about where you want to take your business next, what might be holding you back. And I think that requires like just a completely different set of skills to being a teacher. And So I think, there's both a sort of skill set shift and a mindset shift that sort of has to happen in parallel for that leader the studio owner to really step up into that sort of CEO position. And we say CEO and people think of these huge like multinational corporations, but you are the CEO of this business.
Yes.
You are the leader of the business and you have the same responsibilities to grow it, and it's there for the taking if you're willing to perhaps expand a little bit your own expertise and skill set. And it's all learnable if you really want to go for it. And I think that so the studio owners that really treat their business as like a business, they have systems for marketing, they have systems for onboarding, they have systems for hiring, and they know their numbers. These are the sort of things that often are missing from a lot of studios. The successful studios have that.
Yeah. I chatted with a friend about this recently that, not everyone has that entrepreneur mindset. Not everyone has the leadership trait, and they may be the most incredible teacher in the world, and they're really good at one-on-one connection with their students, but they get into the role of studio owner because it's just the next natural progression. And I think what our discussion ended up surrounding was there's a responsibility to work towards that mindset and to work towards those skills that leaders have. And what we're seeing right now, especially in the boutique fitness industry, is that there's just an either unwillingness or lack of capacity for some people to do that. And that's where we see a lot of studios failing, or just that like perpetual hamster wheel struggle of this studio owner who's barely breaking even, resenting their business, and really not being able to see the light on the other side. So I think what's beautiful about what you bring to the table in your community when we did our mastermind together, and just in general in the content that you put out, is that encouragement that actually like you can do this. It's all, like you said, it's all learnable. It's a mindset. And when you accept that responsibility and you just say, okay, this is actually what's going to me delegating this, or me finding the person who can do X, Y, or Z better than I can, is actually what's going to make this business more money and not drain it, actually,
Yeah, for sure. And so just a little side note. So I'm doing a retreat with some of the members of my Thrive community this weekend.
Awesome.
One of the things that we're doing and working on specifically is leadership, and looking at where their strengths lie as leaders. And I'm so excited for this workshop because I think, we often when we are in our business or in our own world, we don't realize just, how different we all are, and how, where you may be good at one thing, I may be good at another thing. And that's okay. It is about figuring out where your strengths are, and then figuring out what it is that you perhaps can do to improve in those other areas. And it's all comes from me, at least. And I encourage my studio owners to think this way as well. It comes from a place of no judgment, right? It's about being curious about yourself and about being curious about your talents, and thinking about your business in terms of a set of resources and saying, okay, well, I'm a resource in my business. Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm really bad at, or maybe not so good at, if we're going to be kind.
Yeah. Right.
And then and thinking about perhaps some of the other folks in your business in a sort of a similar way, and thinking, okay, well, they're really good at this. I want to make sure that they get to use their talents and their expertise in a particular way. And I'm not expecting everyone to do everything really, really well, because I can't do that myself. And so, often one of the, I think, challenges that we see as studios grow is hiring the right people into particular roles. And often what happens is we find the closest person to us, there is a living, breathing thing. And that's often like the teacher, who is super helpful and really thoughtful and kind. And we really rely on them a little bit here and there. And we just say, okay, can you take on the studio manager role? Or can you handle our, marketing for us? And often we find that we are not perhaps thinking about what their talents and their expertise really is, and we end up pulling them into a role that maybe they're not designed to do, they're not built to do, they don't have the skills or the talents to really do well. And so, I think we have to be aware of, who we are as leaders in our business, and then who the people around us are and what they can contribute really well to the business as well. And then for that part that is missing, go and fill those gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, truly, for any of you listening to this right now that are starting new Pilates studios, the intentional hiring aspect of these businesses is so critical. And it's one of those kind of catch-22s because a lot of employees are not full-time employees, and you're not necessarily paying them $100,000 a year to manage your Pilates studio or work at the front desk. But it's the beauty of what we have in fitness is so much passion behind people. And so you'll be able to find individuals who just absolutely adore what you do, are so bought into what you're offering your community, and even with a part-time job are going to be dedicated if you slot them into what, like, the strength that they can bring the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, quality of life. I mean, we are moving into an era where Gen Z is much more concerned about quality of life and happiness and longevity than they are how much money they can make and money as status. And so I think it's a beautiful place to be because we're in an industry that just naturally attracts people regardless of compensation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Quick question for you, because I know this is, heavy on a lot of people's minds right now. So the long-standing Pilates studios that have been there for, 10 years, 15 years, certainly before this kind of boom, how is the new and heavy competition impacting them? And is there anything you can say, like, gosh, make sure you're doing X, Y, or Z to continue to stand out?
Yeah. So I'm so lucky because I've been working with a lot of studios for like almost a decade for some of them. And so I've seen them evolve through. Yeah, it's amazing. And because they just continue to evolve and, our industry has evolved, they've evolved as owners in terms of what they want to get out of their business and what they want to do in their lives. And so it's been wonderful to see the journey and to continue to adapt. And I think that's the key, is that we do have to continually adapt no matter what. Yes, competition is heavy. Competition is growing. And when there is competition, it kind of calls on you, on all of us, to step up a little bit more, right? And to perhaps do things a little better, perhaps improve the things that perhaps were waiting to get improved for a while, perhaps to examine where there might be opportunities to be able to deliver more or better. And I think that it's really important to be on an ongoing basis assessing your business from a few different perspectives. And I think that it's never a bad thing to improve what you have. So my studio owners are strong because we are thinking about that every week inside of Thrive. We're thinking about growth. We're thinking about the market. We're thinking about their position in their market. We're tracking their numbers. We're looking and seeing like what is working and what isn't. And we're, I think that this idea of doing things the way they've always been done is going to keep you stuck where you were yesterday. And so when competition is getting stronger, we have to get smarter. We have to tap into tools and to strategies and to people that are going to help to give you insight, guidance, strategy, and support to develop your skills in marketing, in strategy, in business and leadership. And that, I think, is what will ultimately separate anyone from the competition, whether you've been in business for 10, 15 years or you're starting out and you're 2 weeks in. But I think one of the things that, just going back to your question, it was specifically for those studios who have been in business for a long time, what I've observed is that they've done well for years without having to do too much marketing. They've relied heavily on word of mouth. Yes. They've got very strong relationships with their clients. Those clients keep coming back. And now, there's a pull towards some other options, perhaps in their town or city. And so now what I'm seeing is for those studios, it's kind of, I say it's an opportunity. Some people might say that's a challenge, but I'll say it's an opportunity because if you were doing everything you possibly could and losing clients, that would be a problem. But when you find yourself not doing everything, so there is an opportunity to do some additional win-back campaigns or retention campaigns or nurture campaigns, then there's room for growth. And so when it comes to those studios specifically who are concerned about competition, you want to make sure that you are building those really deep relationships with your clients. So even if they've been coming for years, we still want to make sure that we are making sure they're connected to our business very heavily. We want to also make sure that we are not relying on generic marketing messaging. And this is a huge, I think, one of my biggest challenges when I work with studios is to help them to be able to convey their brand and their value in a way that is really impactful and appealing to new people, but also to help to retain your existing clients. And so, your brand, your positioning, your messaging is even more critical as the industry grows and as there becomes more competition, because you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the studio down the street.
Yeah, I think we went through an era of, how much can we communicate and how much can we, make sure that we're in our clients' inboxes. And that, from my experience, just being a consumer in this industry, the volume of emails and text messages I get that are virtually the same is crazy. I mean, some of them are literally the same. They're like the automated messages from their studio software platform that they've never edited, right? And it's funny when you look at, if you just like go in and search in your email, "we miss you." Like, you and I have been to so many studios, you'll probably see like 100 of the same email. But it's overwhelming as a business owner. So on that note, I would love to hear, because we are in this cool moment with technology, what kind of tech tools and particularly AI are you leaning into and are you encouraging your studios to lean into?
There's so much here, right? So yes, all of them. No.
Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to tools and systems, there's lots, and there's going to be more coming our way, right? And I think that one of the jobs you have as a business owner is to be able to filter for what you know that you need and what you know your business needs. Because I think it's so easy to get distracted by all the new things and all the new tools and tech. And often I'll see folks, hop from one thing to the next and spend a lot of time learning something new, and only the next week to decide that's not going to work and flip-flop into something else and switch to something different. And I think that we have to be savvy with understanding exactly what we're looking to achieve whenever we're beginning the path of using a new tool of any sort, of any software, because there is a learning curve to learn to all of this. So I think, when I'm working with my studio owners, I'm encouraging them, first of all, to use all of the features that their existing software offers them that helps them to run a profitable business. And so the first place to go before you start buying some AI wizard that's going to help you to do something is to make sure you're using all of the software that is already right there in front of you. And I think, I know Walla has got some fabulous features that you're rolling out and the AI side. And I think all of that is going to be really helpful for studio owners. I think when it comes to other software, I think it's going to be about, you have to decide what is it your business wants and needs. If you're not trying to become the next, influencer with $1 million views on your social media, do you really need to learn how to use or spend hours learning how to use a specific tool that helps you to create these flashy videos? Is that really going to help you to get your next 10 clients? And so I think we have to be really careful. And I'm all for learning on new stuff, but I think that we want to make sure that, we have a finite amount of time to dedicate to business growth, and we want to make sure that we're using it in the smartest possible way. So one of the things that we know that we can rely on AI to help with a lot of things in our business. And that's everything from helping us to perhaps brainstorm content, brainstorm teacher training, brainstorm team meetings, brainstorm events, right? And I think the key word that I'm sharing with you there is brainstorm, because I think too often we're seeing folks just rely on whatever AI says, and that's what you do. And unfortunately, when you do that, you kind of fall back into that sort of super generic trap, because AI is telling everyone that. So we have to be savvy about how we're using it, because it's not just about, asking ChatGPT to write you an email. It's about knowing how to use ChatGPT effectively to give you an output that is going to get your business the results that you really want.
Yeah, I want to underscore that. And I think it's one of the points that I'm trying to convey whenever I'm speaking about AI is, listen, you are going to sound exactly like everybody else out there unless you do, like if you choose, Claude, ChatGPT, whoever, whatever, generative AI tool is right for you, the time investment in teaching it, who you are, who your business is, how your business thinks, breathes, talks, the identity your business is trying to deliver to your consumers. That's when it actually can be a tool you can brainstorm with, because I'm seeing so much of the same content out there. It's so obvious that it's written by AI, and it really is just speaking very generically about fitness. It's not speaking to the brand identity that you're promising, the brand promise, that you're trying to deliver. So I love what you're saying there, like triple underline. You don't want to sound like you're everybody else.
No, but there's lots of uses for it, and I think one of the the funnest use that is easy to use is it's a great way to create processes and systems in your business. It's easy to use for that it doesn't have to sound like you, that it can help you with enormously and think of things that you might not have thought of, especially if you know how to make that work. But you have to know, there's about putting that filter on and thinking like, okay, what am I trying to get out of this, and what is going to be helpful for my business, and what is the result that I need it to give me? Yeah,
I love that. Well, I love giving people the mic here and just saying, you have seen so much in this industry over, more than a decade of working in it. And you've worked with so many people at different stages of their growth. And if you had, could get on your soapbox or have a giant billboard of a message out to business owners, teachers, the wellness world today, is there anything that you're like, gosh, I just need you all to know this?
Oh, so much. But I think that for everyone or anyone who is beginning or in the middle of or in the midst of their entrepreneurship journey, I think the number one thing I would encourage you to believe is that you can do this. You can build your business. And that you have to have the courage to commit that to yourself first before you will see what you want to see out of your business. Before you'll see the results, you have to commit to yourself and believe in yourself and know what you need to be able to show up in the best possible way for your business. And yeah, I see so many people who contribute so much and have so much to give and to offer, and so much passion and talent and knowledge and expertise. And if I could give them the gift of seeing the possibility that I see in them to them, that I would love to do that. Yes. That would be my dream.
That's so awesome. I think you and I both have just this like massive amount of empathy, and we see these people who, like you said, are giving. They are just such conduits for love and for community and for wellness in their communities. And it's nice to hold up a mirror sometimes and be like, look at you, badass. Look at what you're doing, and look at the potential here. Like, come on, this is awesome. But of course, we're our own worst critics and harshest critics. And I love that message. Know that there is so much potential for yourself. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today and with all of us. I know our listeners are definitely interested in what's happening behind the scenes in the Pilates world. And for those of you that are, on the road to entrepreneurship, in the midst of entrepreneurship, deep in entrepreneurship, yes, Seran is a fantastic resource, whether it be in kind of the group setting, retreats, it sounds like. But I highly encourage you to check out what she's up to. I loved working with her, and I know you will too.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on Well, Well, Well.